Hello, good morning, and welcome to CosmoQuest Community Coffee for today, Monday, November 30th, in the year that still shall not be named. I am your host, Gillian Rhodes, and today is Monday, which means that Community Coffee is all about astronomy and art and all of the wonderful ways that they fuse and intersect and influence each other and all those kind of wonderful things. I do not have a guest today, so you get me, but I have a plan, amazingly. Unlike last week, I have a plan. Well, I had the plan last week and then I just didn't have the spoons to execute the plan. But today I have a plan and spoons. So the process goes on. Good morning, everybody. I just have to read this because it's quite funny. Midtown says, if I was any earlier, the Earth would still be forming. Yes, well, it is not Monday morning where I live. It is Monday evening. So I have my cup of tea, and it is now that the time has changed for you guys. It's later for me. So it is after dinner time. Time for a show. In pre-COVID times, this would be the time to go to a show. And so here you are. The plan for today is that I talked about it last week, but basically I'm part of this group on Facebook, which is the SETI Institute Art Imaginarium. And every month they publish challenges for artists, basically different topics for artists to make work on. I haven't done anything in months for reasons. Yes, the time change is quite annoying. And now it's like, anyway, never mind. So I haven't done a challenge in months, and I decided that it's time to do it. I'm not doing the November challenge because I don't feel like it. So I'm doing the October challenge, which is about constellation. So the plan for today is, so the reason that I decided I want to do this as a process stream, basically, where it's not just a performance, but it's also sort of bringing you into the process of making, just because I think every other time that I've danced on the stream, somebody in the chat, well-meaning, of course, it's I don't take it wrongly in any way, but somebody well-meaning in the chat says, "What is she doing?" So I thought that it would be interesting to take the time to show you how I make something, so that when I'm performing, it might make more sense about basically how I got there. So that's the plan for today, is to kind of take you through the process of making it from choosing the subject and then kind of building the narrative around the movement, or the movement around the narrative, one of the two. And then I will pick some music from my catalog of David Joseph Wesley music, which is kindly given us permission to use on this stream. And so I'll pick some music, and I will put together some lights. So if you haven't seen my lighting setup before, I have spotlights, which are still actually holding together, several months into the year that shall not be named. I have some new things to play with. I have these new colored things. I'm not entirely sure that they're non-flammable. So I want to experiment with them, but I'm a little concerned, but I'll just put them on my light bulbs and watch them. And if they start smoking, I'll quickly turn that light off. But I think they'll make an interesting effect. And then the other thing that kind of throws a wrench into the process today is that this will be the first time that I am making a performance in my flat since I've gotten this giant mirror installed. This is a 5 by 7 foot mirror, which is now in my house. I'm just going to change everything. Like all of a sudden, the lights that I had set up for the past 10 months for performances that I've been doing here in my flat will change. So that will be interesting. So we have the elements of surprise going on here, potentially things that will set on fire, and new mirror, which may make an interesting, I don't know. Let's see what happens. I'm hoping that things don't set on fire just because it's my flat, but you know, as people are saying in the chat, it would make things interesting. So, so that's the plan for today. But the first thing that we have to do, and this you guys in the chat can actually help me with, is picking a constellation. So basically, in case it was not clear before, the subject of my performance is constellation. So I'm going to pick a constellation and then make a performance about it. The performance itself is going to be like 5 minutes maximum, just because that's enough time. That's plenty. So I've just actually, before I went on air, I Googled constellations, and I found this document, which is Constellation Legends. So I don't think all of the constellations are in here, and it's certainly just the North American ones. But there's enough. There's enough to choose from already. Okay, so there's already votes coming in, and you guys can get votes. I saw Keeper is voting for Orion the Hunter. Okay, I did glance at his story. I'll have to glance at it again. So this is in alphabetical order. So I'm just going to kind of flip through it. The first is Andromeda, the Chained Lady. And all she really does is get chained to a cliff. So I'm not going to do her. Aquarius, the water barrier, that's not very interesting. The eagle, no, we're not going to do that. The ram, we're not going to do that. There was one that everybody likes Orion, isn't it? Like, it's just, you know, the other day I came home and this guy was actually clear for change. And I looked up and I saw Orion, and it just made me so happy. I was like, I can see the stars. Cancer, we're not doing that. Technically I am a Cancer, but I'm not going to be a crab. Capricorn, no. Cassiopeia just is known for boasting, so no. Cephas, no. There was one I found. The one that I found really interesting when I was just glancing through this was Cygnus, the swan. It's kind of an Icarus sort of story where they basically, he and his friend get too close to the sun, their chariots burned up, they fell to the earth, and basically Cygnus's friend gets trapped in a river, and he tries to save it, and then he gets turned into a swan and ends up saving it. Anyway, it's kind of an interesting story. Everybody's voting for Orion. Okay. Parzival Fusto. Hi, Gillian. Hello, Parzival. Okay, everybody's voting for Orion. Let me just go to Orion's story and see what's interesting about it. Okay, here's what it says. The Great Hunter. With his great skill as a hunter, Orion provided meat each day for the gods' meals. So Artemis asks him if she can come along. He says, fine. He shoots a deer. Artemis was impressed. She told everybody about it. And Orion decided that he was going to impress Artemis even more the next day. So he goes to the forest and shoots every animal he can find and makes a large pile of animals near the door to Artemis's house. That's a nice gift. He's like a cat, but extra. So knocking on her door, he asked her to come outside and see the great surprise he had for her. Upon seeing the great pile of dead animals, Artemis was horrified, because she was also a protector of animals and punished those who killed more than they could eat. In her anger, she stomped her foot on the ground, and out of the dust came a great scorpion, which stung Orion on the heel, causing him to die in great pain. Are you guys still sure you want me to do that story? Because I'm not sure that that's a good story to dance. Like that's kind of horrific. So now that you know the story, I'm not sure if you want. If you want, I can try, but I think that maybe instead of Hercules, instead of Orion, I could try Hercules maybe. That would be more interesting, maybe. The follow bots are out. This new it's CosmoQuest is suggesting Ophiuchus. That's the new one, right? Commonly represented as a man grasping a snake. Okay. Parzival, today I am putting a constellation into a dance. That's what's happening. But I have to pick a constellation first. So I'm just thinking that Orion is like iconic because everybody loves Orion, but I also think that it's a kind of gruesome story. So I'm not entirely sure that that it fits with the dance. The one that actually is standing out to me right now is Cygnus, Cygnus the swan. Just because there's some elements. The reason I'll tell you why is because basically not every story is good for movement, right? So because movement is abstract, so it tends to basically when you think about movement is that it's best if it deals with archetypes and emotions. So this is something that I talk about with my students when I'm teaching choreography, is that basically if you try to get into a story which is too specific, then what you end up doing is slipping into mime and pantomime. And dance is definitely like there's an element of telling a story in everything that I create, but I'm not interested in pantomiming something because like dance is somehow pushing that boundary that yes, it's using these symbolic movements to talk about something, but it's not necessarily like, it's not. I just got really distracted. Keeper map is picturing you representing Artemis's reaction to the pile of dead bodies. The problem is that in that story there are two characters, and I'm only one person. So I could do something that's like weird and strangely comedic, in which I'm like hopping back and forth and pretending to be two different people. But I think for this performance, I'm gonna stick with something that's a little bit more, that's a little bit less gruesome. Somebody going around and killing all the animals in the forest so they can impress a god or goddess. I'm just thinking, like, if I were to do Orion, then it would be something about showing off, I guess. But Okay, so here's the thing. Everybody has voted for Orion, but I'm going to pull artistic privilege and ignore all of you. because I'm the artist here. So what I'm going to choose Cygnus. And the reason that I'm going to choose it is because there's certain elements in the story which can be interesting choreographically. So I'm not just thinking interesting like in legend or interesting in what do you say, like folklore, popular culture, whatever it is. Like I'm interested in the choreographic potential. So basically in this, they're these two friends. Yes, we're just gonna forget the other friend. Just pretend he's just sort of there, but we don't talk about him. So basically there's a fall from grace. That's one element. There's loss of some kind, trying to find something. And then there's asking for help. So Cygnus, when he fails to retrieve his friend's body, it is gruesome. All right, it is gruesome. I agree. It's just not quite as gruesome as Orion. So while he's unable to retrieve his friend's body, so he asks for help. And then basically he makes an exchange. He gives up something which is precious to him, his immortality, and to be able to get his friend's body. So Keeper is sulking. Well, artistic privilege, Nobody ever said that artists were easy to work with. We get to do what we want. So here's the reason, basically, again, the reason that I've chosen this is that there are a lot of elements which are interesting choreographically. So I'm just going to write them down because actually you'll be able to see them, right? You'll be able to see them when I do the performance, if I remember all of them. So the first element is a fall from grace. I'm thinking right now, haven't decided yet, but I'm thinking about using a prop because I think a prop might be able to represent the friend in some way. So there's the fall from grace. Then there's having lost something and trying to retrieve it. I'm writing this down, by the way, so I can remember it just in case. So there's, after being unable to retrieve it, there's giving up and asking for help. And then there's making the exchange, so giving up something. And then there's the retrieving, finally, the success in retrieving, basically, retrieving successfully. Okay, so we have a story which has 5 elements. I don't know what's happening in the chat. There's fluffy bunnies with pink ears and all this kind of stuff. I don't really know what's happening. I'm not a bunny in this performance. I am not a bunny. So basically when I have you have your elements, right? And it's a standard when you boil it down to its essence. You have a basic storyline. You have something goes wrong, something goes really wrong, and then you have the hope and then you come out of it, right? So basically we have a story arc that looks like this. And that allows an emotional arc, right? Which is something that, you need for a story. So obviously I'm not going to fall from the sky because that's not something that I can do. But probably what I'll do is I'll come out of the door, which is, it's not here, that's in the mirror. The door is over here. So basically we'll start with the fall from grace. Then have to be a realization, right? A realization of having lost something, and then trying to get back to the door, being unable to. Giving up is pretty easy to see. You'll see it. Usually when you think about giving up, it just has to do with slumping, basically. So if everything to that point was trying to get to the door, then when you kind of give up on it, that'll be easy to see. Asking for help, basically, this is one of those things that it's just sometimes, like when you're making movement, you just go for the obvious, which is, if your palm is facing up, it's asking for help, right? So something, they'll be there, and then making the exchange. So I haven't quite figured out what I'm going to do about that yet, but it'll, the giving movements are pretty easy to see. And then retrieving successfully will obviously be getting back through the door. So I have it's when you're watching it, basically you won't see the Cygnus story, but the elements of the Cygnus story are going to be there. And that's the way that we make movement. So now, in terms of music, I am going to use David Joseph Wesley, but I just want to see if I know. I've been listening to it recently, so I feel like I have. I'm looking through my playlist right now. I've been, he has this wonderful album called Music to Smuggle By, and I've been listening to it a lot. I really like it. We have to start with something. I think we'll start with this track called Some Imminent Violence. I just put it in my playlist and it started playing. It scared you know what out of me. So Some Imminent Violence will start because this piece begins with the violence of the fall and losing in the looking for something. And that'll take a couple minutes. I don't think it's the greatest song. Like, it doesn't fit exactly perfectly, but there you go. And then this music is the thing that is always really tough for me. But there's actually a track that is from, let me see. I think that's going to be too. You can't hear it because I'm playing it on my headphones. But so I'm just going to think about this quickly. Talk amongst yourselves while Gillian looks for music. This is the part that just drives me crazy, and every single performance that I do is trying to find music. All right, I'm going to think about this while I'm setting up the lights. I'm just kidding. I'm going to cheat and give myself some new time. So here's what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up the stage view. And you will get to see, I'll play some music. So you'll get to see me setting up the space. And now is where things get interesting. So in case of y'all lost interest, like, oh, she's not doing Orion. But now we get to see if my apartment's gonna set on fire or not. So this is the big exciting part of the day. Is whether or not Gillian's house will be on fire. Okay. So, yay. All right, here is my view. Everybody's really upset about this Orion thing. Some imminent violence sounds appropriate for Orion. Yes. And Mike Cassidy is wondering about if there's a water buffalo constellation. I don't know. Okay, all right. I'm going to put on a little bit of music just because it will also help me figure out what I'm using. And then I'm going to set up my lights. I think I'm going to use red. I think it sounds like red. Okay, so enjoy the process. The sauce. Okay, all right. I think, I don't know what I'm doing, but I think I have the light set. The red is looking very dramatic and I'm liking my new gels. And I hope it doesn't set on fire. I have not figured out music. I'm very confused about the music right now. And I just don't really know what to do. So I think I'm just gonna pick something. I'm just gonna pick something. Wait, let me just see what this sounds like. No. I've used that one before. Ooh. Yes, I can use this one. Okay, that's appropriately. That one is appropriately emotional. Ah, not that one. Okay. Gillian in process is what's happening. Sage just hosted the stream for 1 viewers. So I'm not gonna do a happy dance. I'm gonna give you a whole performance, which was the plan already, but here's an extra performance. Okay, so fall from grace, losing something, trying to retrieve it, giving up, asking for help, making the exchange, and retrieving successfully. Those are the 5 things that you should look for. They've been pulled from the Cygnus story, and we're going to use some David Joseph Wesley music because he's awesome, and I don't know what's gonna happen, but something is gonna happen. So here we go. give me, wait, let me just turn on my lights. Change my microphone. Okay, so this was simple. Just a very simple. It wasn't anything particularly fancy. It was not a particularly difficult story either. And that's why I chose it the way I did, is just because the elements of the story were very simple, and there's things that are easy to do in movement, which are also easy to understand. And that's something that's really important to me when I'm making work, is that what I'm doing is artistic, but it's also understandable, because a lot of times modern dance just goes completely over people's head, and that's on the choreographer. So, so that was something that was just a short little sort of investigation into the story. Thank you guys so much for your comments and your claps. Good morning, Whiskey Echo Niner. Nice to see you. Thank you so much, Rocket Sage. Thank you, Keeper, even though I didn't do Orion. There were no bunnies involved. So that's kind of what it is for today. So you've seen me a little bit of how I think about movement, how I put things together. I would just like to say that the light is not on fire. So today has been a success. Yes, I have not set my apartment on fire. Life is good. And that's really all I have for you guys today. I might be back with a guest next week. I might not, depending on how well my ability to plan goes this week. Considering that I'm grading my student portfolios, which are due today. So let's see what happens. But thank you for joining Community Coffee. This is CosmoQuest, a product of the Planetary Science Institute. Bits are coming for no fires. Yes, I can do a happy dance for no fires. That's very exciting. Hex is asking, can you get a compatible LED bulb for that fixture? Potentially. I haven't looked into it. It's just a normal light bulb. That's all. So potentially. Anyway, the whole CosmoQuest is brought to you by you. Thank you for your bits and subs and donations and Patreon patronage and all that stuff. This is how the CosmoQuest world goes around, how the rockets get off the ground and all that kind of stuff. So thank you so much for supporting us and making this happen. There is no daily space today. There is an open space, possibly. And there will be daily space, or daily science news roundup, starting from tomorrow until Friday, and other wonderful programming about science. And every Monday, more or less, you can find me doing something to do with astronomy and art, which means that I will see you next Monday.